Hello there, this is Good Morning Transfers. Rasmus Højlund will become a Manchester United signing very, very soon after completing a medical yesterday. Will there be further incomings at the club before the window closes? £100 million and not a penny less. Brighton's stance is clear, with the club believing nobody will match their asking price in this window for Moise Caicedo. And Manchester City close in on signing one of the most highly rated young defenders in Europe. We'll discuss Josko Vardiol's move this hour. Good morning to those of you watching on the Sky Sports Premier League YouTube channel as well. And our panel this morning, we have Harriet Pryor, Dan Bardell and Kwaku Afari as well with us. Join the conversation wherever you are. Hashtag Transfer Talk. We'll read some of your thoughts out a little bit later. But let's get going with Rasmus Højlund, who has completed his Manchester United medical ahead of his £72 million move from Atalanta. Højlund is likely to be formally presented this weekend, possibly at United's pre-season game against Lens at Old Trafford tomorrow. So, Harriet, what do United need from their latest signing?
I'll give you the really obvious answer first, and that's goals. They scored 58 goals last season, which was actually the lowest of all the top 6 teams. So they're really crucially looking for a player who can come in, a more of a natural number 9, an out-and-out striker. There has been question marks over whether this player is that. He scored 9 goals last season for Atalanta, a further 6 in Euro qualifiers. However, I think that Ten Hag will be encouraged by the positions that he often finds himself in. He's really good in and around the penalty box, and when he does get chances, he does have that natural finishing ability. Ten Hag also wants from a striker someone that can really pin back the defenders, make the runs in behind, and with his pace and physicality, he'll really see the potential for him to do just that. Pace is something that's been spoken about loads, hasn't he? It's often said he maybe relies a little bit too much on his physicality, but I think they can see the raw talent there for him to be good enough to come in and make an instant impact, and also allow Rashford to do what he does best off the left-hand side. So overall, it seems like a good fit between the player and the team in terms of style, but he has got room for improvement. Crucially, in the air, it's something that they've spoken about, people that have watched him a lot. He needs to get a little bit better aerially and that finishing ability, score a few more goals. But yes, goals is the obvious answer they need to get out of him.
Goals is the obvious answer, and what we've heard a lot actually is time, that he needs time. So should United fans have patience?
Yeah, I think they'll need to, but I do think the way he plays the game, he will suit the Premier League. I've been looking at the signings that Manchester United have made in the last 10 years in the front positions, and it's not really pretty reading. I think I've done this in order as well. So Falcao, Martial, Zlatan Ibrahimovic, Lukaku, Cavani, Ighalo on loan, obviously, and Weghorst on loan. In the last decade, probably only Zlatan there, you would say, was any form of success. They obviously won a couple of trophies when he was there. He scored a couple of goals in a League Cup final and had a really good Premier League season and will have influenced those around him as well. I missed out Ronaldo from that list, which was very clever of me. But that wasn't really a success either. So in the last decade, Manchester United have really struggled to get in this genuine number 9. But they tend to have gone, with the exception of Martial, more for some people who are proven and more the finished article. This is a bit of a change in direction for them, and like I say, I do think he'll really suit the Premier League. It's not like Manchester United obviously want him to be good, but they don't need him to be good immediately because they're a better side than they have been when all these other strikers have come in. When the other strikers have come in, they've needed them to hit the ground running. Manchester United are in a place at the moment where they're in a positive place, and although they'll want him to score goals, they won't have to rush him because I think they have got goals throughout the side now.
Yeah, do you not think that there will be pressure on him, though, because of the fee and because of what Manchester United need? It was glaring that they needed a number 9. I know that they've toyed around the idea of Jadon Sancho as a false 9, can play Marcus Rashford down the middle as well. But if he starts off slowly, and he is starting against Manchester United and not scoring goals, that pressure inevitably builds. We saw it last season with different players. Obviously, Haaland hit the ground running, but then if you look at Darwin Núñez, who struggled to score goals at points last season, there was pressure there despite the fact that it was his first season. So I understand the fact that he's a young striker coming to the Premier League. He's only played 1 season of football in a top 5 European league, that 1 season at Atlanta last season. But there will be pressure because it's Manchester United and they do need a striker who needs to score goals.
I think you are right, because I think back to this time last year with the Community Shield, and Haaland didn't have a very good game at Wembley that day, missed a few chances, and everyone was like, oh, Darwin looks the better player here. I'm not sure about this Haaland guy. Yeah, there was some serious hot takes after that first Community Shield game, but we all know what he went on to do. Obviously, the earlier he can get on the score sheet and take the pressure off himself, the better. But I do think Manchester United are in such a good place that he doesn't need to come in and instantly be smashing the goals in, although that would be nice.
I think there's an acceptance as well that it's more of a project, this one. They brought in Weghorst last season and there was an acceptance among the fan base that that was more of a short-term solution where they could come in and just get a few of those goals that they were lacking last season. But this one, I think fans will have a bit more of patience, time, and I know we say that, and he's come in with a big fee, and you mentioned Nunes there. That's always the expectation when a player comes in for more money, that they're going to have to hit the ground running quite quickly. But he is seen as more of a project. He's coming in off the back of one good season. He scored 9 goals there. They'll want more from him, but they know that that will maybe take a little bit more time. But if they're building someone who's really quite young still and can be a really good striker into the future, maybe one season while he's settling and adapting is okay. Haaland's just changed the game for all of that, hasn't he? Because no one's going to be given any time to adapt anymore when everyone's looking at Haaland and what he did straight away in his first season. But that's not normal, is it? We know that usually, especially when you're moving to another league and the Premier League and the standard that sets, it will take a little bit more time to bed in, and they'll have to have patience around that.
Yeah, it feels like Haaland very much the exception. Let's take a look at United's signings so far then. Expecting Højlund to add to the list, but with Manchester United signings this season, you're looking at Onana, Mason Mount. Which of their signings this summer will have the most impact, do we think, this season?
I'm really impressed with Manchester United's incomings, the way they've done business this summer. It seems a lot more astute, it seems a lot more precise what they're doing. They've targeted players that are really in the mould of what the manager wants. He's worked with Onana before. Mason Mount, apparently he had his eye on him when he was on loan in Holland as well, one of his first loan spells, Mason Mount. So they've brought players in that will really suit what Ten Hag wants to do. It sounds strange to say, but Onana is the most important one for me because even as a goalkeeper, he's going to completely transform the way in which Manchester United can build from the back, the way that they can play in a higher line. It's going to enable them to play with a lot more higher intensity. I've said before, I don't think they could go full Ten Hag last season because they didn't have the personnel to do it. Now he's had 3 transfer windows, you're starting to see a side that's more in the mould of what the manager wants. And Onana will just enable them to push so much higher up and control games a little bit more. When you watched Manchester United last season, I never felt like they were in control of possession because after those first 2 games where they lost to Brighton and Brentford, I think Ten Hag realised he had to scale back a little bit. I think the signings that he's made in Mount and Onana, they'll enable him to scale back up and do what he wants to do.
Are we overlooking Mason Mount, do we think, as one of the transformational signings for Manchester United?
I think Mason Mount, obviously I've seen him firsthand when he played for Chelsea, and I think he's a player that suits what Ten Hag is trying to do at Manchester United. He mentioned what he wants this United team to be. I think everybody fell into a trap because he's Dutch and because he managed Ajax, he was going to come in and play this total football, possession based. But he's talked about how he wants them to be a high intensity team that are great in transition. And so a player like Mason Mount is perfect for that. He can do that. He's up and at them, and he's a player that, with his skill set, can add a lot to this Manchester United squad. And I think that's testament to Ten Hag learning and understanding what the Premier League is. We saw Manchester United's first 2 games last season against Brighton and Brentford, and they did get burnt. And I think from that, Ten Hag has kind of adapted what he wants to do in the Premier League. And the signings of Onana and Mount, and Højlund to an extent as well, signify what he wants to do with Manchester United. But for me, I think that Mason Mount will be the most impactful signing for Manchester United next season.
It's interesting because they've got their targets. They identified that they wanted a goalkeeper. They identified that they wanted a striker. It looks like they're going to get him in as well. And then they've also strengthened in midfield. There's maybe an argument they want someone that come in a bit more of a holding midfielder. I know there's been links with Amrabat as well. But you have to say, if you're a Man United fan, thinking about the fact that they were working under strict budget constraints with FFP regulations, and they've got the targets that they want, they've got them in early before the season starts. A lot of other teams in and around can't say that, so I think they'll be really happy with how they've done it. And also Ten Hag has got a good amount of trust now. You mentioned there that he's really established now in the Premier League. I think Manchester United fans trust that if he's gone after a target, he's going to adapt well to the Manchester United style of play, so they'll be happy with their window so far.
I think some of the incomings that they've actually made may have finished some other people at Manchester United as well. Now we know Harry Maguire's been linked away with other clubs, and Manchester United want a certain fee for him. McTominay has been linked away as well. But I think the signings of Onana and Mount, specifically Onana, I think because they'll play with this higher line now, I think that's probably finished Harry Maguire in a way at Manchester United, because I don't think that's his game. I don't think he's capable of being able to push on really, really high. Maguire plays well for England. England aren't quite as expansive, are they? He comes into that set defensive system. It's quite rigid the way England defend under Southgate. Maguire plays well within that framework. I think this new Manchester United that we're going to see this season, that doesn't suit him, perhaps doesn't suit McTominay either. So I think the incomings that they've done, you'll start to see that impact the outgoings as well as time moves on.
OK, well, if you want to have your say, hashtag transfer talk. We're going to move on and talk about Brighton next because they expect Moise Caicedo to be at the club when the transfer window closes. Nobody has reached their valuation, which we're told is upwards of £100 million, and they don't think that situation will change. So, is this the end of the Caicedo speculation, Quaku?
I hope not. Chelsea needs centre midfielders. No, I don't think it is. I don't think it's the end of it until the transfer window closes. It seems like it's a negotiation position that Brighton have taken. Obviously, the Premier League season starts very shortly. We saw the interviews that Caicedo did at the Brighton Player of the Year Awards. And right now, he's very much a Brighton player. He's not a player that's refused to go on pre-season tour like a Robert Sanchez. He's very much part of their plans at the moment. And he's very crucial to them as well. There's a reason why he won their Player of the Season last year. But Chelsea are interested in Caicedo, and Chelsea would have known what the fee was from the beginning. In fact, they've constantly bid below what the expectation is. So there's an understanding that Brighton want to get business done as soon as possible and they want that fee. But Chelsea will carry on until the end of the window. We saw it in January with Enzo Fernandez. It was on, it was off, it was on, it was off. And eventually Chelsea got that business done and paid the money. And Caicedo deal could go the same way, but Brighton are in a position of strength right now. They don't have to sell Caicedo. And we've seen that a lot of teams in the Premier League who are maybe outside the traditional top six, they're in strong positions to negotiate with these top teams because they've got value as well. Brighton are playing in Europe, Chelsea aren't. Brighton probably looking at the price they got or the fee they got from McAllister and probably want to make that up in the Caicedo deal. So they're in a position of strength, but this will rumble on beyond the deadlines that Brighton are setting.
Do you think Brighton know that Chelsea generally meet the valuations? They'll start a bit lower and then eventually, if they really want the player, they're going to go in and meet that fee. Do you think they've seen that in the last few transfer windows and are hoping that will happen? And also, do you think Chelsea are trying to change their tack and not do that?
They've seen it firsthand with Chelsea. They've seen it with Cucurella. They've seen it with various signings and various dealings with Chelsea. That Chelsea do normally pay the valuation the teams have for their players. And Caicedo is a very important player. They're not going to let him go for peanuts. We saw Brighton stand firm in January and keep him despite interest from Arsenal. It will be the same unless Chelsea meet that valuation. So it remains to be seen, but I expect this transfer saga to rumble on.
It's the end of the speculation for this week.
For this week.
No, 12 o'clock, come on, we still have to come.
We know that Chelsea have had multiple bids turned down for Moise Caicedo, so they are looking at other targets as well. That's where we stand on that one. Quaku mentioned Robert Sanchez. Let's talk about him now because Chelsea have managed to strike a deal with Brighton, and that is for the goalkeeper, Robert Sanchez. The fee is £25 million, inclusive of add-ons and a sell-on clause. Sanchez is now set to undergo a medical before that deal is announced. Now, we're told he's there to provide competition to Kepa, who has been targeted as basically the number one this season by Mauricio Pochettino. But can we see a situation where Sanchez is the number one at Chelsea?
Yeah, well, Sanchez won't be coming in and thinking he's not going to be competing for that number one spot. He'll be encouraged by seeing in previous seasons that Mendy did manage to overtake Kepa and get the shirt, so he'll be coming in with that feeling of hope and anticipation. He fell out of favour at Brighton, didn't he? I think De Zerbi made some comments about the fact he didn't really suit the style of play with the progressive passing that he wanted from a goalkeeper, so that's why he dropped down the ranks there. But it's a fresh start for him. He's also being reunited with a goalkeeping coach that he worked with at Brighton, so there's clearly a match-up there and they feel like they've got good potential. But crucially, we were speaking about it earlier as well, Kepa needs that competition. He needs to be pushed both in a training sense and also not feeling too comfortable and too complacent that he's got the shirt. So this will provide a really good bit of competition. I don't think he comes in as number one straight away, but who's to see what will happen during the course of the season.
I mean, there's talk about the fee, isn't there? £25 million. We know that Brentford want $40 million for David Raya. Would you have rather have seen them go for someone like David Raya to come in as a genuine number one, maybe?
If I was a Chelsea fan, that would be my preference, I think. Sanchez's stock has fallen quite a lot over the last 6 months. He was in the Spain World Cup squad at Christmas. I just think it's an awful lot of money for someone to come in if he's not going to be your number one. Now, Chelsea have spent a lot of money on goalkeepers in the past. We all know how much Kepa was. But is he any better than Kepa?
He's biting his tongue. He's biting his tongue.
He's lost it. I'm not being disrespectful here, and usually when someone says they're not being disrespectful, they're about to be disrespectful. But, he lost his Brighton place to Jason Steele. Jason Steele had been around the EFL for a long time, never really played in the Premier League. He lost his place because he wasn't as good with his feet as De Zerbi wanted him to be. I think there might be question marks over his attitude as well. He refused to be on the bench towards the end of the season. So Why is it any different to come in and be on the Chelsea bench?
I think you're being very harsh there. I think De Zerbi has asked his keepers to play a certain way. They invite pressure on Brighton and they play out and they overload because they've got that man advantage. That's a very specific style of play. Nobody else in the Premier League really can play like that, barring maybe Man City.
But will Chelsea not be trying to play expansive football?
No, not at all. It's slightly different. Chelsea trying to play expansive football, but they're not going to invite the opposition on to the point where the goalkeeper basically has to be an outfield player. Raya will be asked Sanchez will be asked to use...
you want Raya as well?
Sanchez will be asked to use his feet, but not to the extent that Jason still does for Brighton, not to the extent that Ederson does for Man City. It's a very different style of play. And I feel like you said, Harry, it's good to have competition. And I don't think the difference between Sanchez and Kepa is that vast. And we've seen it with other teams. We've seen it with Raya going to Arsenal, that they're going to compete for that shirt, him and Ramsdale. And I think there's going to be the same at Chelsea as well. And that can only be a good thing for Chelsea.
But if you're saying there's not much difference between them, then what's the point of buying it for 25 million? They're haggling over the Caicedo fee, but then spending 25 million... Do they? Not in Europe this season? Do they need another...
I think...
You want to be bringing in someone better, I think, if you're bringing in a goalkeeper.
In a training context as well, though, I think you need to be bringing in someone who's maybe going to push you. I'd say it's the one position on the pitch where that competition purely for a number one spot is actually maybe detrimental, because he doesn't want to be under too much pressure. He doesn't want to be in a situation where as soon as he makes a mistake, they're saying, OK, get rid of him, bring the other guy in. And I think that might be the situation. If Arsenal do bring in Raya with Ramsdale, there might be a bit too much pressure placed on both of them. It's a healthy competition. Dan is not having it.
You're right, because there's aspects actually of Raya in the Ramsdale stuff that I don't fully understand. I wouldn't say Arsenal need to go and buy Raya, but they've obviously decided that they are. But they're in 4 competitions. It doesn't say much for Kepa either, and what they think of Kepa, that yet again they're bringing in a goalkeeper who you're saying is not any better than him, but they're bringing in a goalkeeper to be alongside him.
25 million, I think...
That's a lot of money for a number 2 goalkeeper, 25
I think 25 million for a backup player in any position in any football team is a going rate right now. 25 million if you were looking to buy a backup or looking to buy somebody to compete in a position is the going rate. I don't think 25 million, in the scope and world of football that we live in, where Chelsea are paying £100 million for players, 25 million for a keeper who's going to challenge your number 1 keeper is not too much.
I wish I'd not just pulled that face. I pulled on the camera.
Well, Jackie Boy has got in touch to say Sanchez is better than Kepa, so that's what he thinks. And we've had a few people send us in their thoughts as well on #TransferTalk on our Manchester United conversation. Jay thinks that Højlund will score 15 goals or more in all competitions, which would be a good return for him in the first season. Keep your thoughts coming into us. On the way, Manchester City closing in on the signing of Josko Vardiol. We'll discuss that and also Newcastle's chase for a new fullback. Stay with us.
Sky Sports News, sponsored by Shaw Non-Stop Protection.
The one and only Chocomel.
What's that? Can I have some?
Sharing not required.
Cialis Together is an erection difficulties treatment that helps me respond naturally when turned on for up to 36 hours. Plenty of time to change plans. Could be your lucky day, and a half. With Cialis Together, now available without prescription.
Usually I will go and get myself a nice cup of coffee, get my fluffy socks, sit on my sofa, all cuddled up in the corner, legs up, arms comfy, and I start to play. It's my time, it's my me time. While everybody else is doing their things in the house, that's my time for me to enjoy to play. And it's fun. So yes, I like it.
Do as Lisa. Search for Happy Tiger Bingo. Happy Tiger Bingo. Low stakes, roaring bingo fun.
Win at staying in with broadband you can trust when you're working from home. Now you can get BT Broadband, even our ultra-reliable full fibre, from only £27.99 a month on a 24-month contract. Plus, get a £20 money-back speed guarantee and Norton security to keep you protected online. Hurry, offer ends 17th of August. Switch to BT today and win at staying in.
This is an emergency appeal from UK for UNHCR, the UN Refugee Agency. The worst drought in 40 years and global conflict have resulted in an unprecedented food shortage. Hunger has forced desperate families to flee their homes in search of food and water. Millions are struggling to survive. Parents like Shamsa are trying to keep their children alive.
ama asnarjis asceejis asdisha ayagoo noolaan adiga ma timad ad ka tagtay inta xandhumadan iyo juxmadan taaganaan lahayd taasa igu daran maalintaas igu daranayo.
By giving what you can right now, you can help UNHCR give refugee families emergency support, access to food and clean water. You can help save lives and give hope. Please call UK for UNHCR on 0800 473 0214 or search UNHCR Hunger to give £10 a month. People urgently need help to survive.
Wish your phone would last longer? It does with Vodafone Evo's lifetime service promise, with battery refresh and lifetime warranty. What's not to love? Phones last longer with Vodafone Evo's lifetime service promise. Standard on every phone at no extra cost.
From the Arctic to the tropics and rivers to rainforests, get closer to islands bursting with life.
Welcome one and all to witness this spectacular show. Follow the extreme extravaganza, breathtaking, the electrifying energy, and those extraordinary magicians. You are really seeing the most extraordinary finish here. Catch the greatest show on earth. The exhilarating English Football League, live on Sky Sports.
They would laugh at me and say, this is not sport for women.
We were challenging the norm, and that was frightening people.
Most of my fight was outside of the ring.
The fixtures continue to flow thick and fast. The 100 continues. Watch all the action, live on Sky Sports.
The galaxy still needs its guardians.
You're an idiot.
I am Groot.
Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, available now in Sky Store.
Sky Sports News, sponsored by Shaw Non-Stop Protection.
Welcome back to Good Morning Transfers. The EFL returns tonight. We can't wait for it. Southampton get us off and underway at Sheffield Wednesday, live on Sky Sports. And with us to look at the business done in the EFL so far is Ryan Delch from the Second Tier podcast. Morning to you, Ryan. If you had to pick a club who's done the best business so far, then who would you pick?
Well, there's a few clubs who have stood out to me so far. I'd definitely go Birmingham City as the obvious one, though. I think they've turned themselves from a side who would have probably finished around lower mid-table this season into a genuine dark horse for the top six. They've signed the likes of Christian Bielik, Dion Sanderson, and loads of other players, all under the age of 26, for less than £10 million. And I reckon if they spent maybe around double that, I'd still say they've had a cracking transfer window. So the fact they've managed to get all these players for a pittance, really, is incredibly remarkable. I think Plymouth also deserve a shout as well. They brought in the likes of Bali Mumba and Morgan Whittaker for £1 million each. I think those two are two players who I wouldn't be surprised to see in the Premier League at some point, just because I rate them so incredibly highly. Well, then they've also signed really well in defence. Defence was a bit of a weak spot for them last season, but they brought in Julio Plugwazego from FC Twente, who's a really impressive signing. I'm really looking forward to seeing him next season. So I'd say those two, but Birmingham probably just edged them.
Interesting. OK, so the season starts tonight, so people have got to get their skates on if they want to get players in before the start of the season. So in your opinion, who needs to do a bit more right now?
I would say Rotherham out of all the clubs. I think Rotherham have a good manager in place in Matt Taylor, who's done a really good job in keeping them in the Championship last season. He was the first manager to keep them in the league since Neil Warnock a long time ago now. Having said that, the squad is looking very weak. They really need to get some business done if they are to stay in the Championship. They have started to get moving with the likes of Fred Onyedinma coming in, who I think is a decent signing, but still that squad's looking a bit thin in terms of quality and depth. So unless Rotherham do some serious business in the next few weeks, with the window only 28 days away from closing, then I'm a bit fearful there for them.
Who would be your standout signing of the summer so far from the Championship then? Is there a player that you're really looking forward to seeing?
Plenty. I think the one who stands out for me is Ellis Sims, who's obviously gone from Everton to Coventry. Coventry don't really spend money very often on players, so the fact that they've forked out $3.5 million, I think it is, rising with add-ons and what have you, depending on how well the transfer goes. That's a really standout one for me, considering they've just sold Victor Gyökeres for $20 million to Sporting Lisbon. Sims is going to be the one who's going to be tasked with trying to fill the gap that's been left by him. But having said that, I think he's got the pedigree to do it. I think he's probably the best striker Coventry could have realistically signed. But according to Sky Sports sources, they're also linked with signing Haji Wright from Turkey as an American striker, who I think would look like a really good signing as well, considering they're reportedly on about spending about $7.5 million on him. So Sims and Wright next season for Coventry is a really fierce strike partnership if that signing does come off.
Yeah, Haji Wright close to being confirmed, £7.7 million. Coventry are my pick this year. I think they've spent the Gyökeres money really well. What about the relegated sides? Southampton, Leicester, Leeds, do you expect them to keep hold of their, well, the remaining big talents, I suppose, that they have?
I think Leicester probably will. I think the fact they've sold Maddison and Barnes means that they've got enough money in the bank now that they're not in a position to be forced to sell the big players that they've still got there. Southampton's an interesting one. Obviously, Livramento seems to be looking like he's going out the door now. Ward-Prowse has been linked with a move away as well. I think there's a couple of others who they'll be fearful about holding on to before the window closes. So I'm still a bit sceptical about Southampton and what the squad's going to look like there. Leeds are an interesting one because obviously they've already lost a hell of a lot of players already, and there's still a few who could be heading out the door as well there. So I think Leeds are the one where we could still see more departures before the window closes. Southampton maybe as well. I think Leicester, on the other hand, will be completely fine.
A word on Luton as well, obviously promoted to the Premier League for the first time. Do you feel like they have enough in their squad to compete? What have you made of their signings? They've brought in players who have mainly done the business in the EFL, Tahith Chong, Ryan Giles, those types of players. Have you seen them, do you think they've done enough so far in order to compete?
Look, when Luton got promoted, they undoubtedly had to sign well in this summer, and considering how good their recruitment has been in the past, I think they've done more than enough personally. I think Tahith Chong's a cracking signing from Birmingham. He is going to be really important to carrying the ball forwards in midfield. Ryan Giles, I think, is a really top signing. Wouldn't surprise me if he's in the conversation with the England squad at the end of the season, just because England are quite thin on the ground when it comes to left backs anyway. But just because I think he's a really, really top player. That left foot is an absolute one. Kabore is an interesting one. He had quite a good season with Marseille last season. So I think him on the other side to Giles would be a really exciting player to watch. And Marvellous Nakamba was, well, marvellous in the Championship last season with Luton. So I think Luton have signed well. I still think they need to bring in a few more players. I think Thomas Kaminski's come in this morning as well, so that's a good signing. But they do need to bring in a couple more, but I think Luton will stay up personally.
It's a thankless task doing predictions for the EFL, but I'm going to ask you anyway. So in the Championship, who do you think is going to finish where? Who do you think will do really well and who do you think might struggle?
So I've had Leicester to win the league. I think their squad's just simply too strong not to be up and around there come the end of the season. Enzo Maresca, the new manager, is the obvious risk, but I think he'll come good just because he's obviously a world-class coach, having worked with Pep Guardiola. I've gone for a bit of a wild card shout as the other team to get automatically promoted. I've gone with Ipswich Town. They would become the first team to get promoted from League One and then get promoted again in nearly 10 years. It's been a long time since it's happened, but I think this is the strongest team to come up from League One in a long time. They haven't done crazy business over the summer, but I think they've been very sensible. And the manager, Kieran McKenna, is just one of the best, in fact, for me, the best young British manager in the country right now. And then the other team would be Coventry, as we were saying earlier. They've signed extremely well. This summer, everyone thought they'd fall away after losing in the playoff final, but they've shown that they've got plenty of ambition and they don't want to make last season a one-off. So they've built upon what they built last season, and I think they're going to go again.
Ryan, thanks so much for that. Enjoy the game tonight. Enjoy the season ahead. Thanks for coming on.
No problem.
Ryan mentioned it there. I mean, Coventry were my kind of pick for ones to watch this year. They've spent the Gyökeres money really well. And they've also brought in Milan van Ewijk. And if you believe Coventry fans, he's the fastest player in the world. So I look forward to seeing him running up and down that right-hand side. They lost Luke McNally, they lost Callum Doyle. They've replaced them with Bobby Thomas and Lewis Binks. So I'm excited to see how they get on. There's a bit of a churn at Coventry, but I'm looking forward to seeing how they get on this year. I mean, Ryan kind of stole your ones to watch there, didn't he, Dan? Can you add any more to Ipswich Town? It was a good summation there from Ryan.
Yeah, I'd like to thank Ryan very much for touching on the two things that I wanted to touch on in this segment. I didn't realise I was an EFL expert, to be honest, so that's good. But yeah, Ipswich I would have had down as dark horses. I think one signing they've made, Amari Hutchinson from Chelsea on loan, is a really interesting signing. Someone that Chelsea took from Arsenal's academy and has been touted as a bright prospect. I think him coming into that team will improve them, and it will improve him as well, because he's coming into a team that are really carrying momentum, and quite often you do see a team from League One go up to the Championship. I think Sheffield United have done it before and get that double promotion. I really think Ipswich are capable of finishing in the top six, and begrudgingly I agreed with what Ryan said about Birmingham City as well. I don't like to talk about them, but I agree with what he said. I think Craig Gardner, as the kind of director of football there, has done a really good job over the last few years to keep their heads above water. They've got a good manager in John Eustace as well, and now finally for the Birmingham City fans, they've got some feel good back at the club. As much as I'm a Villa fan and they're my rivals, what they've been through as a fan base is terrible, like the way they've been run. So for them now to have some light at the end of the tunnel, and they've signed one of the NFL's best ever players as well, so I'm not sure how that will help them. But yeah, I think Birmingham fans and Ipswich fans should be positive.
You're a Villa fan, Dan, didn't you?
I don't like to talk.
What about you, Quaker? Who's your ones to watch in the EFL?
Ryan did have the whole panel nodding because he said Leicester are going up, and our producer Chris is very happy about that as well. I think Leicester are the best team in the division. Enzo Maresca gives you that sense of a man who's got something to prove. He's obviously fresh off of helping Pep Guardiola win a treble. He looks suave. He's got a point to prove as well. It didn't work out for him in his first management role at Parma. He was only there for 14 games. But he's kept hold of some stars like Ryan touched there. They had to let go of James Maddison, they had to let go of Harvey Barnes and Yuri Tillman. But the fact you can keep hold of Jamie Vardy, who is 36 years old, but Iheanacho, Castagna, Ndidi, who's been playing in a more advanced position in midfield this pre-season, Leicester are the pick of the bunch in this division, and you'd be surprised not to see them go up.
I think Vardy's going to do a Billy Sharp. That's my prediction for this. I think Vardy's going to score a lot of goals for Leicester this season.
Well, and also they brought in Conor Cody as well. I know he's injured. And they're waiting to see how serious that injury is, but they've kind of revamped their spine. Harry Winks is obviously a midfielder that's Premier League proven, and so there is a lot of hope for Leicester this season. It's just about whether they can get it to work, and if Enzo Maresca can prove himself to be as good as an assistant as he is as a first-team manager.
Harriet?
There's always a lot of pressure, isn't there, on relegated teams to bounce straight back up, and that's why I think we've seen with Southampton, they're really holding firm on their valuations for certain players who they think are key. But they did start the transfer window with so much speculation around key names, notably Lavia, that's still ongoing, James Ward-Prowse, that's still ongoing. There's also players like Che Adams, Kyle Walker-Peters, who are still being linked kind of with moves away. So it's a really interesting one how they deal with the next month, and the EFL season is starting tonight. They are playing their first game tonight against Sheffield Wednesday away. Currently, as it stands, they've got all these players involved, but a lot of what goes on with incomings and out really depends on outgoings as well. So whether they manage to keep hold of these players will kind of have a knock-on effect on the players that they do bring in. But the manager was speaking and he did say, Russell Martin, we have targets in all positions. Sounds like they've got good backup options. It sounds like they know a few of these players eventually are going to head out the door, but they might as well make the most of them while they've got them. So hopefully they hit the ground running in the Championship tonight.
Loads of EFL build-up on the website and the app as well, skysports.com. If you're watching on YouTube, though, just open up the app after you've watched us, OK? Sheffield Wednesday against Southampton. Two new managers in the dugout tonight, 7 p.m, Sky Sports Football, Sky Sports main event. Still to come here on Good Morning Transfers. Newcastle ramping up their transfer business. Tonali and Barnes in. Will Tino Livramento be next?
Sky Sports News, sponsored by Shaw Non-Stop Protection.
What does the army of the future look like? It looks like you.
This summer, get Plusnet's full fibre from only $24.99 a month and make your broadband fuller, faster, more reliable
And oh, here we go. What a catch. Offer ends 9th of August. Search PlusNet Fibre now. That's a plus.
It's another scorcher in Britain.
What's better than enjoying a half-price SIM for half a year? Enjoying a half-price SIM at £15 a month with unlimited data. Plus data gifting. That means all the data you can eat and big slices to share with family who need it. All on the UK's best network. Count on EE to keep your family connected.
Formula One fans, get race ready at fanatics.co.uk with official team products shipped right to your door. Fanatics.co.uk, officially licensed everything.
Your dog's gorgeous.
Isn't she? Can you believe we got her to protect our home?
Verisure Alarm is all you need. 24/7 monitoring. Get to check on Crusher if you pop out.
Good idea.
Isn't it, Crusher?
Verisure Alarms. Get 50% off your Zero Vision alarm installation and a free video doorbell install. Call now or visit verisure.co.uk.
Discover the surprising details of your ancestors' lives with our ever-growing collection of historical records. Start your free trial today at Ancestry.
I love watching my two with their grandparents. The kids bring out their mischievous side. Being away on holiday together, I realise how lucky I am.
7-night Norwegian Fjords holidays from $699 per person.
Welcome one and all. Step into a world with fire performers, mind-reading telepaths, and world-bending wizards. There's something for all in the greatest show on earth. The spectacular Scottish Premiership returns live on Sky Sports.
Join two Ukrainian football legends as they captain an all-star lineup at Stamford Bridge.
Join us. Play your part to support Ukraine.
Mayday, mayday.
Commence rescue operation.
Most of the passengers are still in their cabins when the storm hit.
So almost 300 people still missing. What the hell happened on there?
Sky Sports News, sponsored by Shaw Non-Stop Protection.
Welcome back to Good Morning Transfers. Keep your thoughts coming into us. Hashtag transfer talk. Red Devil Ninad has been getting in touch with us about Manchester United. We were talking about that earlier. And he was saying that he wants United to sign Amrabat. I think Ten Hag needs to fill a specific role, he says. He's unlikely to bench Mason Mount. He's talked about Leon Goretzka would want to start, so I feel Amrabat suits Manchester United better. Leon has got in touch about Chelsea, saying they need to go and sign Caicedo. He'll be worth the money regardless. Stop playing games and get him as soon as possible, Leon says. Pay the 100 million. Get your thoughts into us. Hashtag transfer talk. Newcastle are set to add Southampton defender Tino Livramento to fellow summer signings Harvey Barnes and Sandro Tonali after agreeing a £32 million fee with Southampton. Southampton satisfied that they're going to get their valuation. Livramento's package, they believe, could rise to £40 million. So have Southampton been rewarded for standing firm on the fee, Dan?
It's great news for Southampton because it sets a precedent. They've got obviously other players who have been linked with moves away that clubs have made bids for that have been turned away. This is Southampton saying to them, if you want our player, you have to come and pay the money that we want. I think Jason Wilcox is relatively new to that role, and he's come in and he's got a good reputation coming from Man City, and he's holding firm and standing firm. So I think it's good news for them. On the fee, I think it's a little bit on the high side. Livramento's only played around 30 Premier League games, but I understand why Newcastle have come in and paid for him, because he will change the way they attack, which we're going to come on to. But for Southampton, they've got cover in that position at the moment. You know, Kyle Walker-Peters is still there, and if they start the season with him at right back, he's a very high-level player, I would say. He's a Premier League player, so they could probably afford to let Livramento go. You've got to take into account with any deal as well that Chelsea, you'll be pleased about, Chelsea gets some money from that deal as well, so maybe that's a little bit why the price is on the high side, because of Chelsea's cut. So I think it's a good deal for Southampton. Maybe Chelsea can use a little bit of that money towards Caicedo as well.
Dan mentioned that gives Newcastle a slightly different type of player. Does he give Newcastle a kind of variation to Trippier?
Yeah, Trippier is an interesting one because that right-back position wouldn't have been one at the start of the season that Newcastle fans would have said we need to strengthen in that area because Trippier is so crucial to everything Newcastle do in attack. He's such a good crosser of the ball. You've seen his assist statistics as well. He's incredibly important in that aspect of the game. Livramento does offer something, though, slightly different. He's a better dribbler and carrier of the ball. So I wonder whether Howe has targeted this as a different option to play against certain types of opposition. Trippier, for me, is someone who's really good against a low block because he can pick out a pass, he can cross the ball, break opposition lines, whereas Livramento might be someone who can play in a more transitional way, in more transitional games and really carry the ball with his feet. Not to say he can't pick out a pass as well, but they're just where the two players differ a little bit. But you have to also remember that Newcastle are playing in the Champions League this season. They've got so many games. They went far in club competitions last season. They could be potentially playing more than 50 games this year. Trippier is 32 years old, so I think from an age perspective and physicality perspective as well, he won't want to be. He might want to be, but I don't know if he'll be able to play all of those games. So having that variety, having backup options, having someone who can offer something a little bit different can only strengthen an already strong Newcastle side.
This is also a testament to the faith in modern medicine, because back in the day, if a player would have torn his ACL and is out for that long, probably wait a little bit before you spend that much money on him. But the fact that they're so clear-headed and so sure that he's going to be the player that he was before the major injury is testament to the fact that ACL injuries no longer hold players back. Teams will still spend big money on players that have sustained quite serious injuries.
You forget how well he was doing as well before he got that injury. He was having a sensational season for Southampton.
Huge
really
amount
strong.
of potential, hasn't he? I think that's what they bought into as well. The fee's probably quite good for a player that's got so many of his peak years left, and they can see that he's got a really high ceiling.
Yeah, those appearances at the end of the season for Southampton, obviously Newcastle saw enough of the athleticism there. I think Dan Ashworth probably had a hand in it because he was at Brighton when Southampton signed him, and Brighton were very interested in taking Tino Livramento at that point. So you wonder how much of a say Dan Ashworth was in. And I also wonder whether the Newcastle defence with Byrne, Botman, Schär and Trippier, whether that would, when Livramento plays, whether that would be even more pronounced as a back three, and Livramento would be playing much higher with Byrne, Botman and Schär as a kind of back three in possession. I wonder whether that offers them that variation. But if you look at Livramento's journey as well, leaving the Chelsea academy, going to Southampton, do you think other players will be looking at that and going, he's got a big move to Southampton, he's to Newcastle, he's going to be playing Champions League football. You know, if I'm not getting the opportunities in the academy or from the academy through to the first team, is that a route that maybe I could take as a player?
Definitely. I think ultimately footballers need to play football. That's what they need to do. And if you look at players who've done similar things to Livramento, Jadon Sancho was in Man City's academy, went to Dortmund and now plays for Manchester United, who are in the Champions League this year. Noni Madueke, Chelsea's own Noni Madueke, was a Spurs player, went to PSV, so went abroad, took his talents elsewhere, and come back to Chelsea, who are a huge team in this country. Nathan Ake, who's just off the back of winning the treble from Chelsea's academy. It seems to be a lot of Chelsea players here. Went to Bournemouth and now plays for Man City, who are the best team in the world. So, yeah, this is the path that players should look to tread, because it's not just one solution in terms of becoming a professional footballer at the top level. There's so many ways you can get to the top, and Livramento is testament to taking a different path to become a top-level footballer.
Could have had a good team, couldn't they, Chelsea?
Well, you say that. There is breaking news to bring you, and Chelsea have confirmed the signing of France international defender Axel Disasi. We can tell you that it is a £38.6 million deal. The centre-back has agreed a 6-year contract at Stamford Bridge. And we've got quotes coming into us from co-sporting directors Lawrence Stewart, Paul Winstanley. They say Axel has showcased his quality over several seasons in France, and that has deservedly led to recognition on the international stage. They say that he is ready to take the next step in his career. We're delighted that that will be with Chelsea. We welcome him to the club and look forward to him joining up with Mauricio Pochettino and his new teammates in the days ahead. So that deal confirmed this morning, £38.6 million. Chelsea have signed the defender Axel Disasi from Monaco. It's an area that Chelsea have been looking to strengthen. Kwaku, what do we make of this deal?
I'm very, very pleased with it. Monaco must not be that happy. We took Badiashile in January, we've taken Disasi in the summer. But I think it's clear from pre-season and from what Pochettino said that Levi Colwill and Thiago Silva will be the starting centre-backs for Chelsea. But obviously after the injury to Wesley Fofana, it was important for Chelsea to bring in reinforcements in this position. And he complements it quite well. Colwill's left-footed, Thiago Silva's right-footed, Badiashil's left-footed, Disasi's right-footed. And it works really well. It's interesting because he's the oldest player Chelsea has signed. He's 25 years old, and with the
veteran.
He's a veteran. He did captain Monaco for large parts last season, so he does bring that experience. And from everything that I've seen from him and from the profile defender that he is, I'm sure he's going to be a success at Chelsea. It just adds depth to an already strong position for Chelsea.
So breaking news this morning here on Good Morning Transfers. Chelsea confirming the signing of Axel Disasi, £38.6 million and a 6-year contract. Next, with the weekend approaching, who needs to act quickly in the transfer market?
Sky Sports News, sponsored by Shaw Non-Stop Protection.
Hey, Dad. Let's go.
I am so glad you didn't get an electric car. Glad you got a Volkswagen.
And not one of those electric cars.
The new ID3 Electric, the Volkswagen way.
The last thing you have time for is cleaning the floor on your hands and knees. There's a better way. Stand up to daily dirt with a Flash Speed Mop.
Speed Mop cleans up the impossible.
Attach the wet cloth to the Flash Speed Mop. Speed Mop sticky bits, banky bits, and ruddy awkward bits. Then fling the evil thing in the bin. It's quick, easy, and hygienic.
Use our absorbent wet cloths. They're 2 times thicker and wetter. Flash Speed Mop for your daily hygienic floor clean.
Win at staying in with broadband you can trust when you're working from home. Now you can get BT Broadband, even our ultra-reliable full fibre, from only $27.99 a month on a 24-month contract. Plus, get a £20 money-back speed guarantee and Norton security to keep you protected online. Hurry, offer ends 17th of August. Switch to BT today and win at staying in.
Start your summer story by being spoilt in a country manor or refreshed by a heritage coastline. Discover the perfect place to get together in unique properties across the UK. You can savour our ravishing recipes, go on an all-action adventure, indulge in thrillers after dark, and all at no extra cost. So relax and sleep easy at a Warner Hotel designed exclusively for adults. Book now at warnerhotels.co.uk.
Did you know? By switching to cooler water, you can save up to 50% of the energy used when washing up. Fairy Max Power's special formula cuts through tough, greasy challenges up to 4 times faster in cooler water. For a sparkling clean. Fairy Max Power. Drop the hot and save up to 50% of the energy when washing up. And for antibacterial protection on your sponge, try Fairy Max Power Antibacterial.
Roll up, roll up! The greatest show on earth is back in town, and there's something for everyone. We've got amazing magicians, extraordinary escape artists, gravity-defying acrobats, defies description, audacious jugglers, and even
Absolutely free.
there's something for everyone in the greatest show on earth.
It's time for the show to begin.
The one and only Premier League is back, live on Sky Sports.
Mayday, mayday.
Commence rescue operation. Most of the passengers were still in their cabins when the storm hit.
So almost 300 people still missing. What the hell happened on there?
Sky Sports News, sponsored by Shaw Non-Stop Protection.
Welcome back. A reminder of the breaking news in the last few minutes. Axel Disasi has joined Chelsea from Monaco for £38.6 million. He has signed a 6-year contract at Stamford Bridge. We'll bring you more on that as soon as we get it here on Good Morning Transfers. Josko Vardiol's move to Manchester City isn't far off being complete. Medicals taking place ahead of a £77.6 million move from RB Leipzig. what type of player are Manchester City getting here?
A lot of people have been talking about how he's got the potential to become one of the best defenders and one of the best centre-backs in world football. So that speaks to how high people think his potential could go. He's really good in transitional play. And I think if you're looking at Pep Guardiola now wanting to adapt more to how Haaland plays and Haaland's potential that seems to be growing and growing, they want players that can really pick out a pass to him. Now, we've seen how good De Bruyne is at that. And Guardiola is another player who I think will come in and be able to really pick out a pass to Haaland. He's very good at breaking through opposition lines. And I know he is obviously a defender, and he has got that very good ability in the defensive side of his game, good in a one-on-one. We know how crucial that is for Pep Guardiola's defenders, but he's that real modern centre-back, modern defender where he can play progressive passes. He's got a good balance to both sides, and he fits the bill of Pep Guardiola's style of playing centre-backs as full-backs, drifting into midfield. He's got all the attributes and all the qualities to really be able to fit into that system. So, yeah, really good fit between the player and the style of play here for the manager. Really scary potential. Manchester City fans will be happy with the fee they got for him, and I was saying yesterday, you have to be careful saying a player of over 70 million is a good deal, but this really is a good deal for a defender in the current market, especially at his age and the potential that he's got.
I mean, Manchester City have won the treble, so, I mean, does he get in the team?
As much as anyone else gets in that Man City team. I think he'll not play every single game, because that's not how Pep operates, but I think this is a perfect signing for what Pep's trying to do, exactly as Harriet just said. I think if you could build a centre-half, you would build him. He's got everything you want from a centre-back. Left-footed, I think he'll be able to do the things that Pep wants his defenders to do more so than Laporte can do in the Manchester City squad. This might signal the end of Laporte, and he might leave Man City. But I think on the ball, they'll do that thing where John Stones steps into midfield and goes alongside Rodri, and then they become that tight back three. Him on the outside of that on the left-hand side, he's absolutely built for that. It's perfect. And then very much when they're defending, they'll go back to that back four. Stones will step back alongside Diaz, let's say, and then you've got Akanji or Walker if he stays, and then Gvardiol at left back. They then just form that tight, narrow back four that's really difficult to break down. Man City haven't been that busy this summer. We haven't spoke about them very much. But I really think for a team that's already excellent, this is just going to take them up another level.
It's a great signing, and he's... because it's such a position of strength for Man City, he won't be rushed. And if he's not ready to go straight into the starting 11, then he will not be rushed. It's interesting, though, because during the World Cup, before Messi put him in the blender, everyone was saying 100 million. And now 77 million is a decent
Messi's ability, it's what he does to players.
He does it to everybody. And he was one of the best players at the World Cup, and I think that's where he really came to the fore. And Man City would have seen them firsthand when they played against Leipzig in the Champions League anyway. So he's a player that fits what Pep Guardiola does in terms of manager, in terms of style of football, and they can give him time as well. If he doesn't fit straight away or he takes a little time to assimilate, he doesn't have to get thrown straight into the starting 11.
Feels like we've been talking, I mean, he's 21, but it feels like we've been talking about Gvardiol for a couple of years already, and it's almost taken for granted, really, that, you know, he's come from Leipzig and they just have a conveyor belt of players that they managed to sell on for big money. So, what I'm trying to say is he's a player that's been hyped for a long time, so can he live up to that?
Yeah, I think he definitely can live up to that. He's a really rare find as well, isn't he? You mentioned the left-footed thing there. To find a player like that with that quality who's left-footed as well and can just slot straight into a side is really impressive. But you mentioned there what Leipzig do, like the Brighton of the Bundesliga, I suppose. They're identifying these players at a really young age, bringing them on and then selling them off for big fees. It's a very clever business model. But like I mentioned before, I still think Manchester City will be happy with the fee they've got because he is such a rare find and he has got that potential. We've been speaking about him already for a couple of years, and now he feels like he's ready to take that next step up, make his big move, and that's exactly what Manchester City is.
Could be the best selection of centre-backs the Premier League's ever seen. The options that Pep has got to choose from are borderline ridiculous. Now, even if they lose Walker, you know, Akanji will probably just come in and play right back, and he was a really underrated signing last season. He was really, really strong for them. So I do think
Manchester they can all do different things as well, the centre-backs.
Yeah, Manchester City, they're ready to go from a defensive standpoint. I still think they need one more player to play further forward.
OK, well, we'll wait and see on that. Manchester City's pretty much getting closer now to signing Josko Gvardiol. Medicals being sorted out this week, and then the announcement will come, I'm sure. Harriet, Dan, Kwaku, thank you very much for now. Thanks if you're watching on YouTube as well. We're back at midday for Transfer Talk. Good Morning Transfers, though, returns on Monday at 9 a.m. We might look a bit different as well by then. Transfer, not me, the studio. Transfer Talk, back today at midday. Do join us for that. The Transfer Show is here at 5 and 7 o'clock tonight as well. Coming up here on Sky Sports News, though, we are live to Newcastle's training ground. We'll hear from the manager, Eddie Howe.
Shaw non-stop protection. When you hit your limits, you work even harder. Sky Sports News, sponsored by Shaw non-stop protection.
Enjoy.